Alright. It's my birthday, by the way, November 19th. Thank you for continuing to hold me in your heart and pray for me. We're gathered here today to continue Deaconesses, a real historical study as opposed to a very biased historical study. Before we get into some of the differences between the way male and female deacons were treated in the early church, I want to continue where we left off with the Western ordination rites from the early Middle Ages. Just for context, every ordination has what's known as ceremonial, non-essential prayers. For example, prayers from psalms, songs that are sung before and after the consecration. And then it has essential prayers. And interestingly, prayers that are considered essential for the gifts of the Holy Spirit to be appropriately given and the person to be designated into a new order or office within the church. Interestingly, this is something that the church has not always agreed upon, what is essential and what is non-essential, and where to draw the line. Because again, during the early Middle Ages, the prayer of blessing addressed to God, made by the bishop on behalf of the community, was what got the Holy Spirit to swoop down and basically mark someone. And later on you see the idea that it's really not the blessing or the prayer of consecration as much as it is just this statement of delegation. So that was the theology of subdelegation and delegation. Jesus delegated power to the apostles to consecrate the Eucharist, and the apostles delegated power. And the idea was that the essential thing is when you touch the symbol of office and the ordaining officer looks at you and says, okay, I delegate you the power to be a priest, or I delegate you the power to be a deacon, or I delegate you the power to be a subdeacon. Receive this power. So that was the Thomas Aquinas in the 1300s, kind of the high or the late Middle Ages interpretation. But we're going to look back to the early Middle Ages and the Pontifical of Eckberg. So interestingly, the prayer of consecration for deacons is not used for the deaconess, but rather the prayer of consecration for widows. And this reflects the idea that there's a split between sort of the office of the deaconess that she's given and the way that a woman is expected to carry out any ministry. So the prayer of consecration for a deaconess or any other widow, called Blessing of Widows, and God, who for 7 years scarcely allotted the rites of marriage to Anna, the daughter of Phinel, so with the years thou hast preserved in holy and undefiled chastity, that by nights and days interspersed with prayer and fasting, thou wouldest bring to the grace of prophecy, under the circumcision of thy Christ, the just rewarder, and who henceforth, through the apostolic institution of the holy women of this order, instructing the younger and the younger in their sex, visiting with the blessing of holy chrism, to grant, Lord of all things, that this servant of yours, preserving in the strict observance of chastity among women married to only one man, may be allotted the 30th something. Let there be discretion with mercy, generosity with humility, sobriety with humanity. Your work is mediated day and night. And for him who has lost the temporal comfort of his spouse, you, who are the rest of all things, balance the space of the following life with spiritual comfort, as in the days of the calling. He deserves to come to his own, such as is evident that Anna was, whom you even moved to the spirit of prophecy. So again, this prayer is on a very different page than the consecration to major and minor orders. It doesn't really capture the essence of the diaconate. What it captures is the essence of being a consecrated woman in a general sense. So there's a big split in the mind of the Western Church between the idea of a deacon or a deaconess having an authoritative and public ministry and her status as a woman. We'll get more into that later on. But the first prayer may well have been considered the essential form in the early Middle Ages, and it absolutely and unambiguously states that the deaconess receives the marking and the gift of the Holy Spirit of the same order and the same type as the deacon does. So you're left with kind of this unsettling situation where the deaconess is considered somehow distinct in the sense that she is a woman, but at the same time she's given the same gifts in the same office. So there are really two options. One is that these women really were intended to be sacramentally ordained to the major order of deacon, to the third order of the diaconate. Or it could be that there is somehow an equivalency between the deaconess and the deacon. In some sense, maybe there's an equivalent but not quite the same office, and that's what the theology of this commission and the theology of what we're trying to figure out. Is it possible to receive the Holy Spirit for something that's almost exactly like the diaconate, but not truly an ordained ministry? Anyway, thank you for listening, and we're going to get into all of this stuff gradually, just like I said, in short, tiny little bite-sized chunks.